In this tutorial, we're going to talk about CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And as you can see here, the reason that you want to use them in your web pages is that it makes them much more efficient, and it also gives you a much greater degree of control of where you put things, how you put things, and so on. And I think a good example would be if you had, let's say, remember the H1, the header tag? Let's say you had 50 header tags on a page. I know that's a little not feasible or not practical, but let's say you did. And let's say you wanted them to be red. Well, if you were just doing plain HTML, you'd have to go through every single one of those 50 H1 tags and put in the open tag, H1, and then color red, close tag, and so on, go through your sheet 50 times and do that. Well, what if you wanted to change them to green? You'd have to go back and change them manually. Well, with CSS, you just put the command in one time inside the head tags, as we talked about, the invisible command section of the web page, and then every time the web page encountered the H1 tag, it would change it to whatever color you want. So it's a very efficient way to design your web page. It also, as you'll see later in this tutorial, it also allows you greater control of placement of things on the web page and so on. So one thing I just want to show you real quick is these W3 School pages, and I'll just go to that real quick. So actually, remember there was one on HTML, well, there's also one on CSS. It's a great resource, so I wanted you to see that. There's also a page with examples that we will go to, which is also wonderful. And for example, an example of my first CSS web page, just to give you a very quick look at how this examples work and how CSS works. Remember, I said that inside, so remember open HTML, close HTML, and inside the opening and closing head tags is where we put these invisible commands. Well, that's where we put the CSS commands. So in this one, we're saying inside the body, we want it to have a background color of, this is the color for blue. And so close the head, open the body, and you close the body, but inside the body is where all your content that will show up on the web. And so when the CSS program encounters the body tag, it says, oh, I want the background to be blue. And so you can see here, it is blue. And that's essentially how it works. You put your invisible commands inside the head tags, and then it shows up in the body. And we'll keep going with that. But let's keep going with CSS. Okay, so once again, remember redundancy is good, helps you remember. CSS commands you put inside the head tags, the invisible commands. And so here's what it would look like again. Open HTML, close HTML. Open head, close head. So inside the head tags, you put your CSS commands. You remember from the HTML that the title is pretty much just what will show up on the browser. So style type equals text CSS. This alerts the browser that you have CSS in your web page. And again, that's one we just saw. Body background color equals, and then it shows up in there. What we just saw was the structure of CSS. And there are basically three things to it. The selector, which would be your HTML tag. This is, if you remember when we did tables, this was table data. The other tags that we went over were like the header tags, H1, H2, H3, P for paragraph tags, all the different table tags, the list tags, all that stuff. So the selector tells a program that you want to do something to content associated with this tag. The property is basically what you want. You want to do something to the font, to the color, to the background. And then finally, the value is what exactly do you want to do to it. So, okay, so selector, property, value. So here, this is a paragraph tag. The property is we want to change the color inside that paragraph, and we want it to be blue. So that is, again, the structure of how CSS works. And here's another example. So remember, inside the head tags, we got the title, and then we put this command in here to let the processor know that we're doing CSS. So here we have it again, paragraph tag, color blue. And then in the body, we have the paragraph tag. So the processor says, oh, the command tells me that anytime I come to a paragraph tag, anything inside the paragraph tags will be blue. Okay, a couple things to note here. The selector, then you enclose the commands within these squiggly things here, and the structure is the property, colon, and then the value, and you close it out with a semicolon. Okay, so the selector, close your commands inside these squiggly things, property, colon, value, end with a semicolon. The semicolon tells the processor that you're done. That command is done now. Act on it. Some things, again, in terms of structure, is you can group your CSS commands. So note here, we've got the paragraph command. We've got all these different H1, H2, H3, H4, H5 header commands. We're saying anytime the processor encounters any of these tags, we want the font to be Arial, and we want the color to be black. And so you notice the selectors, this is the property, the font, the value is Arial. Notice we close it with a semicolon. Here the property is the color, the value is black. We close it out with a semicolon. So you can group things. Here's another example of grouping. Here we say anytime processor encounters body, so basically anything inside the body tags, we want the font to be Arial, the size to be 10 points, and we want the color to be black. So notice you can put them all inside the squiggly things here. Or anytime it encounters the H1 tag, we want that text to be black, and we want it to have a 5-pixel solid black border. So I hope you're kind of getting the trend here. Now here's something that's really interesting, how you can control different elements of text. Let's say that you've got different paragraphs in your web page, and you want some paragraphs to have the color black and some paragraphs to have the color red. Well, inside your head tags where you put the invisible commands, you would put P for the paragraph, then you put a period, and then this is a word that you define. In this example, the author just said, okay, we're going to call this body text. So anytime we encounter, and I'll show you this in a second, within the body, something called body text, we want all that color of that text to be black. However, if we encounter a P tag, paragraph tag, and we see that the class is called alert, we want that text to be red. And it gives you a lot more control over different elements inside your web page. So here's the example that was in W3 Schools. And okay, so actually they did it a little bit differently, but so here inside the head tags, right, we say P for paragraph dot center, and we're saying text align center, and the color is red. So we're grouping commands. Anytime it comes to the paragraph tag and a class called center, it's going to be aligned center and it's going to be color red. So when we get into the body tag here, we've got a header, right? So that's just normal. That's just an H1 header. It's not affected by anything because nothing in here. But now notice here, the P tag, there's something here called class equals. And that is what relates back to the command here. So when you have the paragraph tag class equals center, it says, oh, this means that I follow the commands here. P.center, class equals center. This paragraph will be red and center aligned, close tag. So when the processor sees the class equal, it knows that it should follow the command right here. And it centers it and it makes it red. And again, I hope this is making sense to you, but we'll keep on going with more examples and you will see. Okay, here's another one with this refinement of the commands. So here's two of them. You don't have to have, let's say, a P or an H1 or so on. If you just do dot highlight, color is blue, then anytime it comes to class equals highlight, this one is in a paragraph, it will put in the body text, Or here's another one, p.example color green, p class equals example, then this will be green. So all I'm trying to show you here is that there's a connection between the commands up here and this class equal, so that you have greater control of the formatting of your web page. Okay, here's one that shows that the refinement of commands, as well as something called positioning. Positioning is a really important thing because as you've been playing with your web pages, you've noticed you can put in tables, you can align them a little bit, but you don't really have a lot of control of where you put stuff. Positioning using CSS gives you great control of where you can put stuff on your web page. Here's an example. Okay, so open HTML and close HTML. Okay, open head, close head. So what's inside? What are the CSS commands in here? Well, again, we alert the processor that we'll be using CSS. And I put some colors in here so you can see the connections. So this first tag that I had mentioned to you at the end of the HTML lecture was the div command. Div is similar to the paragraph command, but it's like putting a box inside your web page, and the div command creates that kind of box. So here again, notice that our first CSS command has to do with alerting the processor when it sees a div tag. There's going to be something called header. So let me just show you here. Div, here's inside the body, div class equals header. So the processor says anytime I see class equals header, I need to follow these commands. And here's this concept called positioning. This is a CSS command called position and absolute. What it is saying is that we're going to position anything inside these boxes starting at the top left and, top left. So if we had a box, think about the top left corner. This is where this is going to start. And we're going to say the width of this header is going to be 100%. So it's going to go across the entire page 100%. And the height is going to be 15%. So starting at so let's say this would be 0, 0 here if you see my cursor. So 100%, it would go 100% across, and it would go about 15% down. So you can see, you're saying, if you can follow where my cursor is, you're defining a box that's something like this, which is going to be your header. And we're giving it a background color of blue. So that, I hope you're following that. But then let's do a second one. We have another div.sidebar. And here again, in the body, we have div class equals sidebar. So it tells the processor when it encounters this class equals sidebar to follow these instructions. This one also, position is absolute, same color. Now here we're saying top is 40, left is 0. So top would be across here. This is 40 pixels, so it'll probably be about here. So 40 over and left 0. So let's see, top. Oh, I'm sorry. So top and left. So left would be 0, would be 40 down from the top. So right about here, we're saying we wanted to have a width of about 150 pixels. Wanted to have a height of 75%, giving it some padding and a font size. And you know what? Let me show you this real quick so we can toggle back and forth. Okay, so when we created the header one, remember we said 0, 0, 100% across, 15% down, cornflower blue, and we put in here the text main header. The sidebar, we said down 40, right? So about here. And left 0. So we're starting here down 40, and we were defining it as, I think, 175 pixels this way, and then I think 75% of the page, and we put text in there. So absolute meaning that we are telling the processor exactly where we want to put this box. Okay, so down 40, starting 0 at the left, and from here we want this box to be this size. So let's go back to here so I can show you again. Okay, so down 40 from the top, it starts at the left. The width of that sidebar was 150 pixels. The height was 75%, and that was why it didn't go all the way down the page. And then you can see here we had some line breaks. We put in an anchor tag for UMaine, and we put another tag for UMaine Business School. Let's go back to that here. Let's see. So we had UMaine. We put a link in here, so we took it to the business school, and UMaine, and then the business school. So you can see that there. And then finally, we go back to this here. The last one, div main text, we're creating a third command. And again, you can see in the body, class equals main text says that all of this should follow these commands here. So now this one is different because this one says position relative and background color is white, which we saw. We're starting 80 down and left 120. Height is 75%. So here, this is where your main text goes. And let's go back to the picture. Okay, so this is where your main text goes. So this was relative because we were saying that we want this box to be relative to this and that. And so it will adjust it accordingly on the page. And we put some text in here. So the main point here is that the positioning gives you a lot of control over where you put stuff on your page, and that is so useful when you're creating your website. So this positioning, I would highly encourage you. I think, in fact, part of the assignment you need to play with the positioning a little bit because it's so useful. Okay, now here's another one. So here they're saying the H2 command. Now they're saying they're giving it. Remember, this is something that you create. This name here. So they're calling the name position for absolute, position absolute, but you would create this. Here's your squigglies, position absolute, left 100, top 150, close it out. So let's see what this one looks like. Okay, so note here, when we get to the body, we start with an H2 tag saying the H2 tag is the one that the processor says, oh, this has a style element to it. Position absolute, left 100, top 150. So left, from the left, it comes out about 100 pixels here. And then from the top down, it comes down about 150 pixels. So as you can see here, this just allows you to place anything on the page that you want anywhere you want it, and that's why it's so useful. Now with the paragraph tag, there's no CSS, so just by default it will put it, just starting from the top because you didn't tell it where. Whereas this one, the reason it's down is that you said I want to start over 100 and down 150. So again, I hope this is starting to make sense to you. Okay, and then finally, there's so many more positioning examples. That was, let's see, relative. Let's look at this relative one here. Okay, so this one they're saying, when it comes to that same H2 tab, they're calling it position left, and they're saying it's relative, and it's left minus 20 pixels. There's another one, H2 position right, it's relative, left 20 pixels, and then here class equals position left, class equals position right. So you can see here that with just a regular P, where there's no CSS, heading with no position, H2, let's see, oh well, all of these have nothing on them. There should be an 8. Okay, here we go, sorry. Here's an H2 without CSS, so heading with no position. Here's the H2 class equals position left, so here you're saying it's relative, meaning it's relative to this one. So it's relative to this, so it's going to be 20 pixels to the left of this, which is why it comes over here. This one here, the right one, is relative also to this, so it goes 20 pixels over to the right. And so the program looks at what it's relative to and makes those changes. Again, I hope that makes sense. Okay, let me go back to these examples again. CSS examples. What I just want to show you is that there's so many great examples in it, and it makes it so easy for you to play with this stuff. Align the text, decorate the text, font size, font type, lists, tables. There's just so many things here, and so I want to keep this short, borders and so on. So I'm just going to leave you with this and encourage you to, for your assignment, to go ahead and play with this and have a little fun with it. It's really kind of cool to see. And if you have any questions,